There you go. Hi guys.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, it's still morning for me, so just drinking my
Good.
coffee.
What time is there?
9 a.m. So it's not too bad. It's not too
Not
bad.
bad,
I'm
not
just
bad.
Early.
yeah. I'm just not an early bird. That's all.
Well, that's good. There is not artist like waking
Yeah.
so early.
Yeah, we work at night for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what should we do. If we should wait like for a couple of minutes and start, or as you wish, Renaud.
Yeah, I mean it's up to you guys. I'm here to help and like to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So if you feel like you would like to have more people present, that's cool. Or we can start right now. Like it's up to you guys actually, not really up to me.
It's more because people are finishing their jobs today, their works.
Right.
So some of them are taking time.
Right. Yeah, totally. I understand that.
We can wait for a couple of minutes more, and if not, we can start and just let them in.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good to me.
How are you, by the way?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really good. I mean, it's Thanksgiving today in the US, so I'm gonna get stuffed pretty in a few hours. Just gonna eat a lot and just spend time with the family basically. So yeah, very exciting day.
Nice
and
day.
we don't get to work either, so that's good.
So today is a free day, right?
Yeah, today is off for most Americans. Today and tomorrow.
Okay, nice.
What about you guys? Is it like just a regular day today?
Yeah,
regular day.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
for everybody, most of people.
It's my birthday, but
Oh, happy birthday. There you go.
happy birthday.
Good. Very good day to celebrate with all of us, with the team. Renaud, you are in the States now or in Canada?
I am in Southern California.
I see.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I got my citizenship 3 days ago, so I'm officially an American now.
Congratulations.
I mean,
I
both
guess,
American and Belgian.
maybe. I see. I'm Belgian.
Yeah, that's where I'm originally from.
Belgium. How many days do you have there for holidays?
Every
year. I mean, officially. No, I mean in the States there in California.
In the state officially, man, I think they have like something like 10 days.
10 days?
Like,
only 10 days,
yeah,
including
of actual
Christmas?
New Year's Eve, Christmas, Thanksgiving, President Day. Like they have a few, but those are like the national holidays. When it comes to employer holidays, that's up to them. They don't have to do it. So most employers do it because in the US it's sort of like a way to sell yourself to your employees, is that, hey, I can offer you vacation days, and that's part of like the package whenever you sign up with an employer. So yeah, it is not like in most European countries where you get like 20, 30 days and it's like provided by the government and nobody can do anything about it. Where in the US, it's more like, hey, it's a perk. If you come work for us, you get holidays.
So it means there is a lot of work there. I mean, a lot of people jump from some company of some studio to other.
Yeah, it's a lot more like that here. A lot of people do like the classic. There's a very classic cycle here where you'll stay 2 years at a company, And then
2
if you want,
years.
yeah, if you want like to get a better salary, you just go to another company. And because usually they try to get you by like bumping you in terms of job title and like giving you a better salary. And then sometimes you come back to your previous company 2 years after. And like, so that's how kind of like people kind of like go up. If you're into that thing. Obviously I wasn't, because I stayed 12 years straight at Blizzard. So I didn't I didn't care too much about that. But yes, it is a lot more, a lot of people are like very care centric here. And so they like to kind of like play the game, if you will.
Yeah. And people usually they move inside the states, or they move around the whole country.
You mean to work
Or
for like
depends.
a specific?
Yes, I mean for video games.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if I'm understanding your question properly, it's like, are people moving close to the work location, right? Or are they all around the states? Or like, are you talking about like, what is the video game industry in the US?
Yeah, something like that. I mean,
yeah,
if you move the studio you're working for, something like
right.
that.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously this is a very work heavy culture here. So you will definitely move from one state to another to work for a studio. Like in a post-COVID world, it's a little different, just because, again, I was talking about like how companies try to, be appealing to their employees, and part of the package nowadays is like people don't want to move anymore, because we're like in a post-COVID world, and people are like, I do not want to leave my family, I don't want to move, or like anything like that. So it's also part of like the package. Like for instance, the company that I'm working at right now, we don't even have an office, because we have people all around the world. We have people in France, we have people in England, and then we have people on the East Coast of the US, the West Coast of the US. And we use the money that we would spend renting an office to fly everybody to a new cool location every 3 months, so we can see each other. So that's how that company is doing it.
Every 3 months you move to some place in, I mean,
it's like
in
an
States?
offsite. Like actually it could be United States, or it could be Europe, or like, I mean, so far it's been United States because most of the company is coming from the US, but we have people in Europe, and we might actually go to Europe at some point. So it's just a way to have people stay where they want, but still have that social aspect of what makes a company,
It's a kind of holidays, holiday trip.
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 days. It's like a workshop, if you will, right? Like it's people will just like get an update of the company, and then we'll just have like go to restaurants and talk and socialize, but also work out some of like the big challenges that we have as a company, and like what is the project facing, and what it's like a good way for us to do like a retrospect of like the last 3 months, if you will, and kind of like work as a group to move forward.
And do you usually use the Discord or any kind of channel to?
Yeah, we're mostly Discord.
Specific.
Yeah.
Discord.
Yeah, we're Discord for work to interact with the community. We have a Discord channel. We have a bunch of Discord servers, basically, depending on like the needs. We have like Discord for influencers, Discord for big play tests, Discord for like internal stuff. So yeah, that's how we work. They're being super cool with us. So yeah, it's been good.
Good to know. Yes, it looks like there's most of the companies that use Discord to communicate. I mean, for the job, for the work.
Yeah. It's pretty good. I mean, security-wise, it's pretty good. The sound and video quality is really good, which is super important for us because we are a work-from-home only company, so we need that. Yeah. We use another software called Slack for anything that's like read and write. Yeah, it's been working amazingly well for us.
And the documents, don't you use, for example, Google Docs or something like that?
Yeah, we do. Most of like the things that we share, we are exclusively Google, if you will, for like that kind of stuff. Yeah, everybody has we all have an email address that's linked to a Google account, and that is part of like the same server, and we just share all the resources like that. We use Miro also. I don't know if you guys know Miro, but it's a really good like real-time board type of thing. So whenever we need to do like jams or like kind of like brainstorm ideas and put like post-its and like you know, like kind of like interact like that, it's kind of like a whiteboard, if you will. We'll use Miro. So I think a lot of companies just exploded like in the COVID era, because they were like, okay, we need to get on top of that. There are going to be like just a few tools that are going to be probably at the top that everybody is going to use. So it's been great to be able to use some of those, and you can tell that a lot of companies really want to make that as easy as possible. So.
Okay, I think we can start if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like I already started.
Go on. Thank you guys for coming, all of you. Thank you a lot, Renaud, for this session, for being with us. It's an honor to have you on board. Please start your session as you wish.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't have really an agenda. That's what I said to the person I talked to on LinkedIn. I'm not sure if it's any of you guys. I'm so sorry if it is. But I was like, hey, if you guys have any questions, I'm here to help. I worked, I mean, just to talk just a tiny bit about myself. Coming from Belgium, I studied there. Video game art at a school as well for like 3 years, and then I spent like, I would say like 6 or 7 years as a freelance, working for like various companies in the US and in Europe. I started my own company with a few friends in 2008. Not the best year to start a company because of the financial crisis, but that's the year that we had to do it anyway. And then a year later, Blizzard reached out to me to be part of a next-gen MMO that they were creating at a time that became a project called Project Titan. And they flew me over, and I started working there in 2009. Spent 4.5 years, I think, on that project. That project got canceled. And I was lucky enough to be part of like the skeleton team that they formed after that cancellation to start a new project, and that new project became Overwatch. So yeah, so that was kind of like a journey, and then I worked on Overwatch from 2013 to 2021, and then decided to leave in 21. It was a good run. And started at a new startup called Theorycraft Games, and with a bunch of people from Blizzard, Bungie, Riot Games, and Respawn, the guys who are making Apex Legends. And we are working on like a super cool, exciting project that kind of like mixes a bunch of genres. If you look up Project Loki, Theorycraft Games, you should be able to take a look at like what we're currently working on. And so super happy to share any knowledge that I have, whether it's on the technical side, because you guys are obviously students and working towards like what I'm assuming is going to be a job in the industry, or you know, whether it's like company culture or more like technically, like in terms of like character design and stuff like that. I'm really happy to just allocate my time to any questions that you have. Really, I don't have an agenda. It's whatever you guys want.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, thank you for your time, Renaud.
Of course.
For getting the question is for getting a job in the industry as a character artist, how important do you think is to focus your portfolio like on specifically characters for video games or for cinematics? Because I saw you have some of your characters on your portfolio have like 2 versions, like the video game and the cinematics. So, but I'm as a junior, trying to get in the industry, I want to know that if I should focus most of my characters on one specific field, or just having a mix of them is good too.
Yeah, that's an amazing question. That's a question I get a lot actually. And the main answer that I have on a high level is I think that like you used the right word already, which is like you gotta focus. I think a lot of like things that I see juniors or students doing is that they will kind of like scattered a little bit too much for what the industry needs. Meaning that like they'll do a little bit of props, they'll do a little bit of environment, they'll do a little bit of realistic characters, they'll do a little bit of like stylized characters. And I think it's really good to explore what style and what type of 3D you want to do while at school. But when it comes to creating a portfolio, as somebody who has recruited a bunch of people at Blizzard, like the thing that we look for as an employer is to be able to find a person that's going to be as quickly as possible being able to join our team and do exactly the work that they're supposed to do on the project that they would join. Meaning that like, let's say like you want to work on Overwatch and you want to apply to Overwatch, the best shot that you would have at actually getting a job on that team is to create a portfolio that's really dedicated to that art style. You don't necessarily have to only do fan art of Overwatch or anything like that, but like you want to show the employer that that's your passion. And that's what you're dedicating your time towards. So if you're into stylized art, just go all in that, because you will be doing that on that team. Like you won't be doing realistic characters. Like for instance, if you look at my portfolio, there's no way in hell I would join Naughty Dog to work on the next Last of Us, right? Like this is not the portfolio that I have, and it's okay because that is not necessarily the style that I personally like to do. And so what I did is I decided to just tailor my portfolio around stuff that I would personally know that I would enjoy working on moving forward. And that's also something that employers react well to. So to your specific question in terms of like, whether it's cinematic or video game, I think it has also something to do with the team that you would join. So let's say, let's stay on the Blizzard example. If you want to join the cinematic team, I would absolutely do cinematic characters. Like 90% of your portfolio should be cinematic characters.
Okay.
Like people should open your ArtStation page and basically not even think about it. Like just know right away, oh yeah, that guy is a cinematic character modeler. Like the last thing that you want employers to do is to have to dig into your portfolio to try to find a model that would match their style. Because usually they have 5 minutes to look at your portfolio. It's going to be like a very quick judgment. And you sort of like want to be able to show right away that you're the right person for the job. And that's how I would do it. Yeah. So definitely focus, try to find what company, what game, what project, what art style you personally deep inside want to work on. What's your dream? And just double down on that, because there's a good chance that you might just be good at it because you have more passion around it, meaning that you're going to work harder towards that style. And it's also going to give like a really clear message to the employer that that's what you want to do.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Renaud, I would like to ask, following the question of Aaron's question, if, for example, if you are as a lead artist, you receive some. Let me think about how to ask the question. You receive some portfolios, and all of them, the technique is not bad. I mean, actually, now in theory craft in your studio. And all of them, the technique, the quality is good, not bad. It's not exactly what you would like, but not bad. Is there any other characteristic that you would like to have, what you would like to find in these candidates? I don't know, for example, soft skills or how fast they are, or any other kind of characteristic.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, all of those are amazingly useful component of being a game artist, because a question that we love to ask at Blizzard that sort of like stressed a little bit people from time to time is that we would ask the question, what is, in your opinion, the main difference between a great artist and a great game developer? Right? Because at the end of the day, what we're looking for is a game developer. And the answer that you usually want to hear through that question is like, you want to get the feeling that that person is not going to join your team to make a portfolio piece, that the art actually serves gameplay, that, you know, like the what's good for the project might not necessarily always be what they exactly want. And I think that like that awareness of like knowing that like art is only a part of what makes a video game is something that you really want to develop. Like that's not something that you necessarily get right away, because, you know, when you're like at school and like when you start in the industry, and I was exactly the same, all that matters is to make the most beautiful art you can to kind of like level up your craft and everything. But you get met with like a really big reality really quickly in the industry, which is that the art that you make is only 50% of the job. And then the other 50%, to your point, Miguel, is soft skills and being able to compromise and being able to understand why we're making the choices that we're making. Well, I wanted to make that super cool character there, and I wanted to push the style, and I wanted to really make like that shader shine and everything. And they're like, well, that's a background character. Like we don't really need that level of interaction, and the time that you're gonna spend on that, even though it's your first assignment and you're super excited about it and you want to spend all the time in the world on it, from a big picture point of view, it doesn't matter because we're not gonna see that character. And so you being able to realize that and say, okay, I'm gonna do what's needed for that project so I can save time and money and move on to the next task, is in equal skill to develop over time. When you start in the industry. So that, I mean, you know, like it comes with experience. I think it's also depending on like the project, but I know from experience that that's something I had to wrestle with because I was extremely quality focused. And the main feedback I got from my managers for like the first 5 years was like, you got to manage your time better, buddy. Like you are spending way too much time and trying to make like everything perfect all the time. And we don't need perfection. Like right now, we need good, but we don't need perfection because we need you to move on to the next task. And then so over time, you just realize that like, okay, I really need to start understanding that my art fits into a bigger project rather than just being just for the sake of like making a great model. So we look for that. Absolutely. Like we will have like phone screen interviews. So if your portfolio sparks an interest and we want to start chatting with you, we'll have a call. And that first call is usually for that. That first call will basically on a high level, make sure that like you don't have ego. You're not an asshole. You know, you can work with people, all of that stuff. And all of the questions that we're going to ask through that might not look like it, but what we're gauging is understanding how you work with people and how you can let loose and be yourself and geek out about stuff and really just show your passion, right? Which is hard because your first interview, you're like a stiff, you're like so nervous and you're like, oh my God. And so we get a lot of people that are like sort of like failing those phone screens because they're like so stressed that they come off as like being not super great. And so that's our job as recruiters and people that are like a little bit more used to that to understand, okay, that was just stress versus no, that guy is actually not super great. Or that person is not super great. So that's more on the employer to actually being able to filter that. But my main advice, even though it's super hard, is that even if it's your dream job, you will have a better shot at getting that job if you relax a little bit and understand that like they're interviewing us, you guys, but like you are also interviewing them as well. Like it needs to be sort of like a two-way street. So, and once you start to get into that groove, it usually relaxes the interview. Everybody starts to laugh. You know, it starts to go a little bit better. But so yeah, easier said than done. But being able to relax during a phone interview and just like make a couple of jokes and like just talk a little bit more of your experience and stuff like that is usually goes a long way.
Yeah, I think so. So basically, it's just to show the softer skills, and because of the other part, maybe it's not so easy to see there in the interview, right?
Yeah, I mean, just
sure.
show that like you're a good, decent human being is really the only thing we're looking at during the phone screen interview. That's it. Because if we talk to you, we know that your work is good. Like it's not about the work, and a lot of like junior artists are like focused on like, oh my god, they're gonna ask me a bunch of questions on like how I did those UVs, or like how I did that retopo, or like how is my texturing stuff. And no, we don't care. Like that's not really the thing during the first call. Now what happens usually is if we're like, okay, that person has potential. It's not exactly what we are looking for, but it has potential, and I'm seeing like the quality of the presentation is really good. I'm seeing that like it's almost there, and it would only require maybe like 10-15% of time investment to kind of like get where we want them to be. And on top of that, they're like really good communicators. They communicate clearly. They have like, you know, they're relaxed. They seem to be like super easy to hang out with. Then the interview will usually go two ways. You might get an art test, which, I mean, I got a bunch of artists whenever I joined. I mean, I got an artist to join the Project Titan, to join Blizzard. Even though they called me, they were like, you know, like, hey, do you still want to do like an art test? Like, we would love to kind of like, and so, you know, that's something that happens. I think that nowadays it's actually better because sometimes they'll pay you for the art test, which is great. But that is, if you have a portfolio that doesn't match exactly, there's a chance that you might get an art test. And then if that is successful, then at that point, it's usually you come on site, and then you meet the team. And then if that goes well, you got a job or you got an offer. That's the process at Blizzard, at least. And I feel like it is pretty similar in most big companies. Yeah, sorry, that was a really long answer. Hopefully that answers your question. But
yeah. Thanks a lot, Renaud.
How many interviews do you have to do to get into Blizzard?
It depends. That is the short answer. I would say the core, from my experience there as a recruiter, is you apply, you send out your portfolio, you'll get an email. If the email is positive, you'll probably get like, hey, do you want to chat? Then you're gonna get one phone screen interview. If the phone screen interview goes well, you either go to like directly offsite because they're like, oh my god, we need that person right away, and we don't want to let it go, or that person has potential, but we still, a couple of people on the team still want to see if they could do the work. Then you get an art test. From my experience, it's like usually 3 to 4 weeks. Usually art tests, like they give you a bust or something like that. Like on Overwatch, it's a bust. Where in my time, we had to do 2 full characters, which was like absolutely bonkers. Wow. So now they're like, no, we're just gonna do a bust, and the bust usually has all of the main parts. So you have a face, you have hair, you have a little bit of clothing, and you have like hard surface armor stuff. Like, and all of those elements are like just to make sure that like you can do a little bit of all of that, because Overwatch is all about that. And then other teams will have different stuff. World of Warcraft, I know that they do like weapon tests and stuff like that, because that's usually the first asset that junior artists do whenever they join that team. Diablo will ask you to do like an armor set, stuff like that. And then if that art test is successful, then you go on site. They either fly you over or do it like remotely if you manage to, you know, like have in your contract that like you would like to stay or whatever. And then you will meet a lot of the team, get a lot of questions. You'll usually meet the team, like the whole like art department in your guys' case, in like a group of twos, because the way that they do it is that there's like Blizzard has values, you know, like gameplay first and like learn and grow, and so you're gonna have questions based on that. So each group, if they're well structured, will actually ask you like slightly different questions. You're gonna have one group that's gonna be specifically about like your craft. You're gonna have one group that's like a little bit more about are you a team player? Do you know what it is to actually work as a team, or what is your feeling about working as a team and stuff like that. And so you'll have like a few groups like that, and then that's it. So a little trick, or something to know, is that some companies will have what they call the kill switch, meaning that like if the candidate is not a great fit, they will usually at noon, like for lunch, they'll usually stop the interview there. So that's already a sign, and you can tell right away, like if you have that, you didn't get a job. That's a reality. Because usually there is interviews after, like there's interviews in the afternoon and everything, but like if there is a red flag, they'll just kill it, and at lunch they're gonna be like, yeah, it's over, it's good, thank you so much for your time and everything. So that's something that Blizzard does, and a lot of other big companies do. So yeah, that's your answer right there.
Thanks.
I wanted to ask what do you feel about juniors getting hired remotely, or this kind of thing, which is difficult sometimes, as it's normal that we need the studio to help us or learn all the basics. How do you feel about that? It's better to go on site to do remote things?
I think on site will always be better for that kind of stuff, because you get to the thing that you get on site and that you don't get in remote work is that you get like indirect knowledge, meaning that you'll swing by and you'll see something on somebody's screen, and you're gonna be, oh my god, what is that? Or you're gonna see somebody, or like you're gonna eardrop and hear somebody talking about like a UV technique, or like a modeling technique, or like how they do like floaters versus merging modeling, or like whatever. And all of that is, it's not you seeking the information, it's kind of like the information kind of like coming at you for free, and so that you get on site. And I personally feel like in a remote world, you need to sort of like create opportunities for yourself to learn that kind of stuff, where you're gonna almost need to have like, hey, can I have a one-on-one with you once a week so I can show you modeling stuff? Or like, can you know what I mean? Like you're gonna have to schedule stuff a lot more, because you cannot just look at somebody else's screen or like just overhear a conversation or anything like that. So it's a lot harder. I know I learned a lot when I joined Blizzard, because I was surrounded by so many artists that I had looked up to for so many years, and you're just surrounded by that. And so you're like kind of like living and breathing it on a day-to-day basis, and you're just seeing people working. And so it gives you ideas of like, oh, I never knew that I wanted to ask a question about that. And then because you're seeing something. So yeah, on site I think is way better in my opinion for that.
Thank you.
I think we have like a couple of questions in the chat, so I will translate for you.
Yeah, please.
There is Anna who asked, if in projects, for projects like Overwatch, the recruiters are looking for, let's say, a specific style, like they do, for example, in Riot with the hand-painted style.
Yeah, I can absolutely talk about this, because I was to some extent responsible of like developing the start of the characters for that game. So I guess I can give you a little bit of a hack of like what went through my brain when I went through that. I think, okay, so I'm gonna step back, and I think this actually reminds me of like an advice that I give a lot of like junior artists when it comes to fully understand a style. Is personally the first thing that I do whenever I join a project and I have like an art director, a new art director, or a new lead or anything like that, is that I book a meeting with that person of 1 hour, and that meeting, the only purpose of that meeting is to walk out with like a list of their favorite artists, their favorite manga, their favorite comic book, all of those references, because if you know where they are coming from, then you will know how they give feedback. Like, to give you an example, on Project Titan, I was a lot more junior, and we got this guy called Rich Diamond, and he was coming from Naughty Dog, and he basically created Nathan Drake for Uncharted, and like he was like at the very inception of like that whole franchise. And so I spent like 1 hour with that guy, and I walked out with like one artist that he really loved, which is Philippe Faro, who's an amazing French sculptor who has a bunch of really awesome books. The next day I bought those books and I started to actually read those books. Within 2 weeks, the guy had no feedback for me anymore, because he was like, oh, I would have done that. Oh, that's cool. I like how you translated that. And the cool thing for me, that what it does is that then it gives you a pathway on like how to translate a 2D concept into 3D with the sensibility of the guy who is going to review your work, which is super important. So that's my little hack that I usually do each time that I enter a new company or work with like a new art director. Like for Overwatch specifically, what happened is that so Arnold Tsang was the genius behind the art style, like in the 2D concept and like the whole universe of that game. And so well, we knew already each other because we were working on Project Titan together, but because he was now the lead concept artist, like I had like a better chat with him, and then I started to gather references. Okay, he loves Capcom, he loves Street Fighter, like he's a huge anime buff, and we started to kind of like I started to develop a list of like he loves Metal Gear Solid, and if you go into that, you can see a lot of the shapes of Overwatch are actually like we have like this little like trapezoid like shapes that we put in like the corner of like every single modeling, like every single mechanical stuff. You go see like Metal Gear Solid, some of the mechs there, it's exactly the same shape. So all of that, you start to kind of like gather like a shape language. And so that's what I did. That was the first step. And then the main thing for us for Overwatch was like trying to blend like Western and Eastern influences. So I'm a huge Disney fan. Like I'm more like coming from Disney. I love clean curves. I love all of that good stuff, straight versus curves and all that kind of stuff. And so we kind of like married the two. And that's what we were looking for whenever we were looking for people joining the Overwatch team. Is we were looking for people that could analyze that style and understand that it was, a Western game with a lot of Eastern and Japanimation influences. And so that's sort of like the work that you need to do initially to understand what is the style of a game. Like try to understand who are the people working on it, try to dive into that and then understand that. And then when it comes to the style, you were talking about hand painted. Overwatch is specifically stylized PBR. So the challenge with that project was to go from a spec and glass workflow to a fully PBR workflow, because we started that in 2013. There was no PBR games at the time. So we had like a couple of papers, like technical papers, and we kind of like created our own version of PBR. And so that was the whole style, is like trying to understand, okay, we know that we want realistic lighting. We know that we want realistic materials. A metal should look like a metal and everything. But at the same time, we also want to have that handcrafted feeling. And so we started to understand what were the things that we wanted handcrafted versus the things that we didn't want to have handcrafted. And we realized that weathering was actually an amazing way to get the handcrafted feel into the characters. So all of that made the Overwatch style. Now, if I understand your question specifically, is the question was like, how do you understand that? Is that correct? Right? Am I right here?
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, it's what you were telling us about the style. If the recruitment department, it's like they put like more attention maybe to the
they absolutely do. And I think, you know, I'm gonna actually share maybe like a good example with you guys. Let me see if I can find that. Can I paste links in the chat?
Yeah, you have you got permissions for everything.
Okay, awesome. Let me see if I can find something for you guys, because we hired Ying. She was a very junior artist. She was coming from mobile, and she still had like a lot of like potential. I'm just trying to find her portfolio here, and I want to show you the piece that made us say like, okay, this person has a lot of like potential, and we're gonna decide to hire her. So I made the call of like hiring her based on the Sylvana piece that literally was her only piece. Like she had a couple of other pieces that she removed now, but like she had like the Sylvana piece. And that was just her way of saying like, okay, I don't fully understand what the Overwatch style is, but I think I do. And I'm going to try to do my own spin on it. And I'm going to do like a World of Warcraft character with that style. And the thing that I saw in that piece, even though it was not necessarily exactly where it was supposed to be, is that I saw that like she understood a lot of like the ship language that makes this character. I thought that like the face had some potential. I thought that there was like some elegance to the design. And so she did also an art test that was also really good. That was actually better than this. So between that and the art test, we're like, okay, this person really gets it. Because the one thing that we didn't know is that, okay, she has a lot of like sculpted shapes, and we want to make sure that like she can model like in Maya, like she can do like actual proper like poly modeling. And so we gave her an art test, and some people have that art test actually somewhere. I think, I don't even know if I'm pretty sure that if you Google Overwatch art test, you might be able to see it. Well, I'm seeing a lot of like the weapon art test, so that's for sure. If you go to Google Image and you say like Overwatch art test, that green gun, 100%, that was the weapon artist art test for Blizzard. For the character artist art test, I think, I mean, it's out there somewhere on ArtStation. They just don't label it as such, but it's like a bust of like a blonde character with like some female blonde character of like some armor parts on her. So yeah, so that's a good example. And then she absolutely exploded when she joined. Like she learned like some of the basics, and then recently she released like some of like their latest hero, Life Weaver and stuff. And like that hero is like in terms of modeling and everything is like perfect. Like I told her, like I'd already left the team, so I had no input into that reviewing that asset, and I told her that like she really kicked ass. Like it was really good modeling. But yeah, so it's just about seeing that like that person had like, in her case, it's kind of funny because she only had one asset really, so technically 100% of her portfolio was there. And we just decided to give her a shot, and it turned out to be really good. So
I have more questions from the chat.
Yeah, go for it.
Another one is like, could you give any advice when it comes to anatomy, focused on this type of style?
Yeah. It's anatomy is an interesting one. I personally am not a. I mean, when it comes to stylize, for me, it's like it's something that comes after. I really like simplification in terms of understanding how each piece interconnect with another one. So my favorite book so far is Anatomies for Sculpture. I think that they do an amazing job at breaking down everything. It's amazing. I mean, I have that book like literally right there, and I open it almost every day. I think that Philip Farrow is an amazing resource as well. If you get figure sculpting or like mastering portraiture, those two books are extremely good. Let's see what I have. I'm looking at like my book collection here. And then I personally, yeah, I've been collecting a bunch of like references, and I have my main like pure ref board that I use. When it comes to stylization, I think this is gonna sound really cliche, and probably most of your teachers are telling you that, is that I wouldn't go stylize right away. I think you need to really understand what anatomy does in order for you to be able to translate it properly. Because if you go straight to like, this is how a stylized bicep work, like a lot of times, like stylization, at least the way that I am doing it, is that I am doing basically muscle grouping. So something that would be like 2 or 3 muscles become one. But the overall silhouette of that muscle still encapsulates all of those submuscles. So if you don't understand what all of those submuscles are, you're gonna screw up that shape. And so for me, it's still extremely important to be able to really fully understand that. I mean, I just bought Rafael Grassetti's Écorché. Like I saw him at Lightbox Expo in LA, and yeah, I basically bought this there. Like I'm still buying anatomy stuff like to this day. Like I collect it. And the reason of why I'm collecting anatomy figures, like I have like 4 or 5 different Écorchés, is not about the once you're done with like kind of like learning a little bit more, okay, I know that the shoulder is divided into like, you know, like X and Y muscles and stuff like that, is I think that the thing that makes those écorchés and those different models really appealing is the way that like every single artist lays the skin and the fat on top of it. That's really where the magic happens. Because I think everybody, and that's something that I actually see a lot of junior character artists doing, is that whenever they do like an anatomy study, they emphasize the muscles and the inner structure a little too much, which becomes like basically you see écorché and you forget about the fact that there's a bone structure and then there's muscles, but then there's the most important part, which is the fat and the skin on top of it. And that's really what you want to be able to master when it comes to like stylization of anatomy. So in short, I would say study anatomy in 2 ways. Study like classic, like very detailed, realistic anatomy. I think it's super important to do that. And then study like the complete opposite of the spectrum, which is boxes and cylinders, you know, like spheres, boxes, and cylinders, and understand like that, like the arm is actually a chain link, you know, like those kind of concepts. And then stylization is in between those two. So stylization is basically you understanding the core mechanism between each muscle groups, and then understanding how many muscles are there, and then you kind of like find the sweet spot that works for you, and are able to group muscles and put the creases where you want them to be. Hopefully that was an okay answer. I don't have like really super specific like surgical things to tell you, but like that's how I learned personally on how to do stylized anatomy.
Thanks.
Mhm.
I think I have more. Other one from Anna. It's asking if it's a good idea to keep in your portfolio characters and environment at the same time to show up that it's better to have more variety than just focus into something specific.
Yeah, this might be a little bit of a hot take, but it's my subjective personal opinion, is that I think diversity actually will lower your chance of having a job in a very specific field. I think when it comes to, and again, it really depends on like where you want to apply. Let me backtrack actually. If you want to apply to like an indie company on like a smaller team, smaller project that will require you to be a jack of all trades, where you need to do everything, by all means, show that in your portfolio, right? It's all about what you want to do. But if you want to apply on Overwatch and you want to be a character artist for Overwatch, we're not gonna care too much about your environment. And if that's really what you want to do, I personally think that like sometimes like spending like the time that you would spend of like making like an environment piece, you could have spent that on actually learning more of your anatomy, or like trying to decode the style of the game that you want to work on. And some people might see that as a gamble, right? Of like, hey, no, like you don't know if you're gonna get that job, so why would you ultra focus on that? I think for me, it's like it's about trusting yourself and believing in yourself and understanding that if that's what you want, that's what you will get. I think the best example I can think of is one of the character artists who joined the team not so long ago. The guy's name is Rakan. He actually did the presentation in the latest ZBrush Summit about like the Overwatch pipeline. If you guys saw that, that guy, oh my God, like I'd never seen a guy so driven and excited about getting on the Overwatch team. That was his dream. He was like, I don't care. I just want to do that. This is the team. I'm gonna join it. I don't care. And he really focused on that, and he kept like sending us like fan art and stuff like that. And we're like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, stop, like, what's going on? But then at the end, like because of his energy and everything, like initially it was like, no, this is not super great. But then we're like, this guy is like the most passionate guy I've ever seen. Like, this is amazing. Like, we need that person on the team. And then he landed a job in the cinematic department and started to work on the cinematic team, and he had like a really short contract and everything. And then the Overwatch team actually thought we made like a case to actually get him a visa, because we're like, this is the type of person the team needs. Like the energy that he brings to the team, the passion that he brings to the team is what we need. Because sometimes, you know, when you've been working on a project for like a decade, sometimes you're like, it's not like you get grumpy or anything like that, but like it's just less exciting. And just seeing those people like coming to your project and discovering and making you feel like you just started to work on Overwatch and is as valuable actually. And this is why most of the time juniors will also get hired, is that it's not only for the fact that you guys are like already incredible artists and that we know that you're gonna add like so much to the team, is also because from a team mental health point of view, it's amazing to have new blood and to have excitements and to have people that are like discovering this and making you feel the love of the project again. And that is something that like not a lot of people talk about, but that's something that like junior artists really bring to the table and that you guys should embrace. So to go back to the initial question, I think for me it's about passion, and it's about, you know, like understanding where you want to work and where you want to work and what you want to work on, and just going for that, because there's a good chance that you might just be more passionate about it, and that passion will translate and will contribute to getting you the job. Again, that's my take. That's what I believe. You might get other answers from other people, but yeah, I'm coming from like a more like emotional / feeling point of view, which I think translates in just to some extent better art.
So I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from what you said about Rakan, is the
Yeah, Rakan. Yeah.
Rakan, about the portfolio pieces that were like I forgot the word, like fan art. Sorry.
Yeah.
So do you think it's a good idea having fan art in your portfolio? Because I heard some people that says it's not a great idea or something like that.
I don't know who says that's not a great idea. I think that's a bad advice to say that. I think it's an amazing idea to show your passion for a project. I think that there is nothing better and nothing more interesting for a company than like a love letter to your project. Also, fan art, from just a purely self-educational point of view, allows you to start to understand the style better. If you try to replicate exactly like somebody else's character and you fail at it, hopefully you're learning something in the process. And so it, again, like if we are in like the on the topic of like you really wanting to join the project and hoping and putting all of the chances that you can behind you to get to land that job, fan art is the best way to do it. I mean, Rakan, if you go to his portfolio, if you type Rakan in the search field of ArtStation, he's the first one. Not a lot of people are Rakan on ArtStation. Most of the weapons that he did, like so the Lucio one, I mean, you see he put like fan art there. Like all of that stuff was just him trying to understand what was the style. Like the thing that like really put him over the edge for us was like his presentation skill. Like he's really good at rendering too. And we're like, oh wow, dude, like he's got it. Like his model is absolutely not video game ready. And as a matter of fact, you know, like he struggled a little bit initially. That's why he joined the cinematic team initially, because he didn't know to make like a video game model. But that's another example of like we saw the potential. We saw the energy that this guy brought, like his enthusiasm about the project. The fact that he was like, I will never work on anything else. I'm sorry. If I don't get Overwatch, I don't get there, and it's okay. I'm not pushing you. I'm not being a creep or anything like that. But like I love this project so much. Like this is what I want to work on. And I'm not saying that like it needs to be always like that. Like Ying, as another example, was not necessarily like that. She was like, I love this project. It's really cool. Like here's like a model that I did that kind of like emulates that. So you have like different level of interest. So I'm kind of like giving you like both sides of the spectrum, but no, I think fan art is amazing. It's absolutely incredible. I wish I could do more fan art in my free time. I absolutely love it personally.
So just for clarifying, for example, if I wanted to, I like Berserk. I don't know if you know the manga.
Yeah, Berserk.
Yeah, so if I would like, for example, making guts in like a more realistic approach, would it be a good idea, or maybe
are we talking about Overwatch here, or just like you basically because if you do guts in a realistic approach, what is your goal? Let's talk about your goal first, I guess. Like what is the company, what is the project that you would like to ideally, like let's shoot for the stars here. Where do you want to work?
Yeah, I wanted, I mean, I don't know specific like companies, but I know I want to do a realistic 3D character art. So that would be the goal.
Okay. So more like, are we talking about like Blizzard cinematics, or are we talking about like Naughty Dog, like Last of Us, or like Uncharted?
Yeah, I didn't decide yet about video games or cinematics, but yeah, like the realistic approach of in this case guts, for example.
Yeah, that I think that's great. I think that's awesome. When it comes to realistic approach, I think that like your rendering is going to be super important as well. Like your understanding of lighting and rendering is going to really need to go hand in hand with your modeling, because that realistic also lighting contributes 50% of what your model is going to look like. So if you do like amazing amazing modeling, but then your rendering looks like a PS2 game, like it's just not gonna fly, right? Like, so when you go realistic, or when you go stylized, you need to understand also composition and lighting and everything. But like, you need to understand that like the way that you present your model is the way that like people are gonna see your model, right? Like seeing like a T-pose rendered like this is cool. Like, you know, like it's okay. And I have a bunch of those on my portfolio as well. But if you want to be hired, you know, you're gonna want to also showcase that you have an understanding of like what makes all aspect of realism for our characters, and that comes also with rendering and lighting and everything. So that would be my advice, is that making sure that like, you know, definitely own like your modeling skills. Another thing that's like super important for realistic characters, that you're gonna need to really make sure your surfacing is on point, right? Like that's the trick with your realism, is that you can be hired as just a modeler, but most of the people who get hired, whether it's Naughty Dog or, you know, Studio Santa Monica for God of War, or any type of like a cinematic department, employers will want you to be amazing at surfacing, amazing at modeling, and hopefully amazing at rendering, because you might need to help in all three. So depending on like the team and the scope of the team. And so that's the challenge with realistic stuff, is that, yeah, it's not just being able to put like a bunch of like tiny pores on like a surface or anything like that. It goes way beyond that. So yeah, but like to your question, yeah, I think Gus from Berserk is amazing. I mean, anything that you can do. The topic at that point for me, like the subject that you picked doesn't really matter too much, because it's not like there's a company that actually makes like CG animated like Berserk, you know, animation right now. So it's not like the topic, the subject that you're picking is not gonna help you land a job. So do whatever excites you. But what's gonna help you land a job is the way, it's the quality of your model and the way you present your model. Okay. Super important.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
Hey.
So I wanted to ask you, in the early stages of your career, how many hours per day do you work?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. So it is true that the earlier years of your career is probably gonna be a little bit more grindy. You're gonna grind a little bit more. You're gonna work a little bit more. I think that I would like to push back personally on killing yourself and just working 24/7, because you're gonna burn yourself. And one thing that I discovered a little late in my career, see, like I still have it there, like I'm still working too hard, is that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And I feel like as a new junior artist, I was just considering that as a bunch of sprints all the time. I was just sprinting, and then I would just kill myself, and then I would not sleep, and I was like starting to kind of like plateau, because I was like, well, I'm too tired, or like I'm just working too much and I can't take a step back. And so I'm not gonna be able to give you the amount of hours that is needed. The only advice that I would have for you is that even right now, I think that having a healthy relationship between work-life balance is super important, because that's gonna keep you from burning out quickly. And you can already burn out, like even when you're like in your 20s. Like it is totally a thing. Like you don't burn out the way that like you do it when you're like in your 40s like me, but you still, like, the burnout in your 20s is basically plateauing and not understanding why you cannot make progress anymore. And that's usually because you haven't had a time to digest what you just did, and taking a step back and reapproaching maybe a thing that you're struggling with from a different angle, and being gentle with yourself. Yeah. So another thing that I think helped me as well is I think something that was really hard for me whenever I was grinding and I was working a little bit more is to do that mindlessly without goal. I'm like, oh man, I need to just draw something like 30 minutes per day, or like I need to sculpt something. I need to do a one speed sculpt a day. And it was like, I don't know what to do. I don't care. It's just for the sake of learning. And it got stale really quickly. And it was like almost like a hassle, where if you're like, I want to do, like I have a project and I really want to do this, and I have a goal, and through that project, this is what I want to learn. I feel like that was always a lot easier for me to do that through having like an actual set goal than just like doing the exercise for doing the exercise, because then you don't even know why you're focusing on that. You don't know why you're learning that. And then so it kind of like provides you with like this kind of like weird, like everything at once in your face, when you're like, what do I pick? Where do I start? Where I feel like if I was like, okay, I really want to be better at like sculpting, you know, like for me it was like female characters. I really wanted to be like, because it's really hard, like there's like a lot of like really subtleties and everything. It was a really big challenge for me. And so they are not on my portfolio or anything, but like I started to do like some fan arts from also actually mangas or animes that I love. Like I love like Gum, and so that was like one of the first female character. Alita, Battle Angel is the American title for it. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this project. Nowadays, when I want to do like personal projects, I will do stuff with like 3D printing in mind, because I love doing like that kind of stuff. So to this day, I don't do personal stuff in a vacuum. I always have sort of like a project, and it helps me just work.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think I have maybe like one more.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Nafal was asking any really main advice to how to start to design a character, just to be better like a character artist.
To design, I mean, it's not like there are different jobs, but like I personally rarely design my own characters, if I'm being honest with you. I love grabbing the thing that personally makes me geek out is not necessarily coming up with my own designs. I mean, I do from time to time, but the thing that makes me geek out as a 3D character artist is to translate other people's style. Like I really, really love grabbing a 2D concept and seeing how do I translate this in 3D? What makes that 2D concept so amazing, and what makes that style so unique? And I found that again, with like the work that I'm doing, like I work with like an amazing concept artists, and that's usually what you're gonna have. Like what I've been doing my whole career is going in and then having a concept, and like that person is like, well, I hope this will translate well in 3D, and that's my role to do that. And so from that perspective, which is my perspective at least, is it's more about everything that we talked about previously in terms of like understanding, like starting to understand, like we're like analyzing those concepts and understanding where the person is coming from. If you have a chance to be able to interact with them, like I will actually reach out to concept artists whenever I want to do like a fan art from their stuff, and I will have a chat with them. When it comes to creating your own designs, I think again, I think that there's like a big emphasis of like people wanting to create like super awesome unique characters right away, where most of the time, I mean, like even like somebody like Arnold Sang, right, like who's an incredible character designer, like if you talk to him, he's gonna tell you that he basically copied other people's work for 10 years, you know, like, and that's how, and one day you just wake up and you have been doing so much of like trying different styles, copying what other people are doing for your own like personal growth, that you're gonna wake up one day and you're gonna be like, my style is actually a mix of like 50% of this guy, 20% of this guy, and then I really love that personally, so I'm injecting that, and that becomes your style, and that becomes your source of inspiration and how you want to start a character. So I think doing other people's design is, in my opinion, a pretty good way to get started. Like everybody does a little bit of that anyway. And then also, I think your style, well, it has also something to do with like what you personally like your own experience and everything. And I'm talking about like subjects, right? Like the type of topics and the type of like, if you are into monsters, or if you're in like into like anime or like Western comics, or like, you know, like skateboarding, or like whatever it is, like I feel like just develop that first, and then when it comes to like the way that you sculpt and the way that you design stuff, it'll just come naturally. It's just that you got to start somewhere, and in my opinion, starting from people that have been doing that for longer than you is probably a good plan, because there is a good chance that they understood how to do a bunch of those things, and then you will come up naturally with stuff that you will digest all of that, and then you will reject some stuff, and you will keep a percentage of each style that you emulate. And then whether it's a style or like ideas of characters, like you will start to create like that melting pot, that mix that's like really yours. And I think that's what it is, really. Like developing your own style and developing like character creation is basically that. It's just finding a recipe of ingredients that are already in there. It's just everybody has different ratios of elements. That's all. So don't overthink it. Just if you want to do like a character of like X, and you're like, oh man, I wish I could design like this guy, or like I wish I could design like a character that has something to do with that game. Just grab a bunch of influence and just start designing around that. And it's okay if it's a little too close to that. That's fine. Like another thing that's really important though during that process is crediting. You need to credit your source of inspiration. You need to be transparent about all of that. I think that that's a big mistake that like a lot of junior artists make, is that they think that by crediting and giving away their influences and the things that they copied, it's gonna make them look like they're bad, or like they're bad artists, or like they don't have inspiration, or like they, you know, like they are not able to come up with their own stuff. And no, that's not it. Like everybody in the industry does the same. I think that the people that get respected the most are the people that are actually really open about like their process and how they get there. And so always credit as much as you can. And you're gonna see that like whether it's on our station or like any art community, people will be a lot more respectful of your work if you do that than if you try to hide where you got that idea from and make it feel like it's coming from you.
I would like to ask a couple of questions if you have time, Renaud.
Yeah, I do. I think I'm probably gonna have a hard stop at in roughly 30 minutes if you guys are cool with that. But yeah, I still have a little bit of time.
Okay, so my first question is concerning about the concept artist, because the question is, in a project like Loki, in theory craft, how many concept artists you have, and if they have any kind of like specific roles for environment or for characters, and how they work in general? I think.
We have quite a bit of concept artists actually, because we're creating a new IP, and usually when you're creating a new IP, you just need a lot of like people to kind of like come up with like cool ideas and everything. So we have currently internally, we have 4 concept artists for characters and 2 concept artists for environments internally, and then we contract a couple of people for like skins and stuff like that, because we have skins and cosmetics and stuff. And so the way that they work is like we're still evolving that, which is really interesting because we have a lot of concept artists that have like really different styles, and which could also be like a really interesting thing to talk about in terms of like how we come up and make all of that consistent in 3D. Like that's another challenge, and that's why you know, starting to understand translation from 2D to 3D is super important, because you might end up in a situation where like you have two concept artists that are drawing completely differently, completely different styles, and you still need to be able to make it feel like it's the same game. So the way that I work is usually they'll assign like one concept artist per hero, per character, like hero character. Like we're like a hero based game, and so that concept artist will work on that, and then they will sort of like at some point open up and say, hey guys, this is like sort of like the inception of the design. This is the sketch. Those are the sketches and stuff like that, and we have a really cool working environment at Kreaktivate, because at that point 3D modeling actually goes in and say, hey, how about I just start like sketching stuff in ZBrush, you know, like how about like don't figure everything out yourself, like just give me like a 3/4, like give me like the sketch that you have right now, and then I'll just go in and start to like rough shapes out, and like, oh, we have a hood from this camera angle, how is that gonna work? And then they're like, I don't know, man, like, I mean, perspective is hard. So they're like, okay, how about I just like put a few shapes in ZBrush, we look at it from like the angle, and then you take a screenshot, do a paint over it, and we start to find the design like that. So it's a very collaborative work environment, because we have a lot of senior people that can just hop in and just work with that workflow. That also gives a little bit more ownership with like, it's like kind of like a shared ownership. It's not like one person who's like, oh my god, I need to figure out that concept, and if I don't, like, I'm failing the project. It's a lot more of a group environment where everybody is like, we got you. We're gonna find this design, like this concept is amazing. If you're like struggling a little bit, like we can have like somebody else doing a pin over, like, and stuff like that. So it's a lot of collaboration and ping pong stuff between artists, and usually that allows us to find a character way quicker. And then most of the time we already have a base in 3D, because we went through that process, and we did some stuff there. So that's usually how that works. It's a collaboration between 2D and 3D pretty early on in the process. And yeah, some of the concept artists are a little bit more focused on characters. Some of them are a little bit more focused on environment. But no matter what, there's always a really open communication with 3D. And again, what's gonna be the end goal of that asset? It's not about making the prettiest concept on the planet. It's about the idea. And how you get there. And then for the rendering and like making like a perfect concept, we can always do that later. Like if we need like a promo art, we can spend like 50 hours making like an illustration. But when it comes to like production environment and like concept in a production environment, you'll be shocked by how loose some of those concepts are.
Good, thanks a lot. Thanks. I haven't. The second question is related maybe to Kreaktivate. You know, then here Juan leads the group, and we have several mentorships. We have for concept art, we have for 3D, we have several. We have for characters, for environment. Let me know, Juan, if I forget anything. Also for I remember it's for shading, right? For props also, for shading. Do we have also VFX?
VFX and tech art too.
Okay. And do you think that nowadays, because of the market is approaching a lot, this thing is so much fast, do you think that is necessary another kind of like mentorship, for example? Do you know what I mean? Maybe
I'm not sure. I'm so sorry. So what I understood from your question is that or like you have a bunch of different sections, right? Like you're teaching a lot of like
Yes.
different things.
Yes.
And are those like all the same students like doing all of that?
No,
Or
every
is it like different
student
sections of like students are like basically specializing in like specific parts?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, that one.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
my question is
yeah.
really about if there is any other new kind of job or role
Maybe
that
he's trying
people.
to ask for any type of tendency, or like, let's say,
Yes.
like the grooming artist, for example, which is like pretty new. It's not like, you know.
Yeah. With something, I mean, it really depends on the project. So I think that like right now, if you look at the market, and I think I can speak for our experience, is that there is a renaissance of the indie game scene. There is a lot of money right now in like, we have a lot of VCs, venture capitalists, who are like throwing tens of millions of dollars of like trying to start new companies. And because, you know, Blizzard and Riot like lost a lot of people in the last 2 years, and like all of those people are creating their own companies, and so there's a lot of that in that market right now. And I think for like the next 2 or 3 years, that's probably going to be still the case. The thing that's being required in those is to be a tiny bit more jack of all trades, so knowing a little bit more, but with still a specialization, right? So I think that like what you guys have is still super good. I think that like for that specific market, and we can talk about like the other markets as well. For that specific market, I think that like the one thing that I personally experienced that I didn't anticipate is, no matter what you are in those companies, if you can be a little bit of a technical artist on top of that, it's going to be a big plus. Meaning that like, if you can do the whole implementation yourself, or you know how to do shader work in Unreal, you know, or like, you know how to do a little bit of blueprints in Unreal, all of that stuff will really add to your skill set of being able to join those teams. Because most of the time, you know, like we started at Kreaktivate, it was like 2 of us, 2 artists, and you need to do everything. And it worked out because, you know, Matt Taylor and myself Matt is coming from like the Overwatch team as well. So we've been working together for 10 years. Matt is incredible. Like, he's super technical, way more than me. So we were able to really do a lot without a lot of help. And so that's one part of the market is, yes, you can specialize on characters, and I think you should, and that's still super important. But if you want like a good area in your downtime, and you're like, I don't know, like I'm a little sick, I don't want to draw and like sculpt all the time, like, is there anything else that I can do to kind of like up my chances of like finding a job? Just learning a little bit of like scripting, whether it's like just blueprinting Unreal or like shader graphs or like all that kind of stuff, is super useful, especially in today's market. And then you have you basically have 3 markets right now, in my opinion. You have that market, which is the indie market, which will become the next big companies of tomorrow. But right now, they're still in kind of like the inception phase. So if you want to join one of those companies that you believe in, just be ready to do more than what you think you are going to be asked for. Then there is the very established industry, which is joining a company like, you know, like Blizzard or Riot or like whatever big companies is in Europe as well. And at that point, it's like ultra specialization. And depending on like, if you go for like a realistic company, then I think, to Aaron's question, right, to Aaron's point, I think that like the line is really merging between real time and pre-rendered. I mean, just look at like what Unreal is being doing with like Lucasfilm and like the stagecraft stuff, where they're using Unreal in the volume. You know, like you've seen The Mandalorian and like all of the Star Wars TV shows that have been released recently. All of that is being done with Unreal. And so basically in the next 5 years, most of like TV shows and productions are probably going to be in real time, because that's what they want. Like pre-rendered was never something that people wanted. They were like, we're going to have to render a frame very slowly because we cannot do it in real time. meaning that like people that are coming from the video game industry now are gonna have all of the sudden in a few years a whole market in front of them that's gonna open up, and that's gonna actually where they're gonna be able to be more successful than like the old timers that were in the old industry, that were like only purely cinematic team or like stuff like that, because you're like, oh well, I know Unreal, I know Unity, I know like X and Y. And so that's another industry that's like emerging right now, where understanding what's like understanding all of the facets of like a really high-end, almost borderline cinematic character, even though you're doing real-time stuff, is definitely something that you would want to do. Like grooming is great. Like, I mean, I did Alembic exporting in Unreal and all that kind of good stuff. Like I did strand-based hair, and I started, and like there's literally almost zero documentation on it, which sucks. But I even had to fix a script, like because like Autodesk has been really bad with that, because they completely like they're not really supporting XGen anymore. They kind of like build it for Zootopia, and then after that they were like, whatever, we'll come to it when we come to it. So they are like other companies like Onatrix who are trying to do like real-time strand-based hair, but like all of that stuff, yeah, is definitely like, I think that like the games in like the next 2 years are most likely gonna have strand-based hair, not cards. Like cards are gonna go away at some point for that type of games. So always like a super good thing to look for. So yeah, so that's another part of the industry, which is there's gonna be like basically the movie industry and the video game industry are gonna become one industry for that specific thing. Like it's just happening. It's already happening. So just being aware of that is good. And then I think that like the last industry for me is like the mobile industry is really booming as well. Like it's still there, it's growing. A lot of, I mean, if you see like in the last 5 years, like most of the big companies release one of their title on mobile, because there's just so much money in mobile that like it is something that like people want to have more artists with. And then that is a cool like window to kind of like, if you're like more into like, well, I just want to do like really super low poly stuff and hand painted stuff. Like, yes, you still have World of Warcraft, but like there's a whole other market as well with mobile that's kind of like 5 years in the past in a way, and kind of like catching up. So you still have that industry that's like completely booming, and that's really, really super interesting. Like 10 years ago, working on a mobile game was like, oh my God, this sucks. Like, why would you do that? And now it's like, it's super cool. It's really, really, really fun. So there's also that market. That's when it comes to teaching, I think I mean it's like anything else, right? It's like sometimes it comes from students and sometimes it comes from teachers. It's like there is enough resources on the web to understand where the trend is going. Like you can look up at like all of the cool stuff that are happening. Just like keep yourself informed and then bring up topics, you know, in class. Like, hey, what about this? What about this? Like, I saw this. I think you know, like one thing that can be difficult for schools, and it's just something that it is that, and I taught also at a school for like 6 months when I started, is it is not always easy to always update your curriculum to be with like everything that's latest. Like it's just really hard to always be at the top of everything. So one thing that I've seen some schools do, especially in the US, is that they also let students bring up stuff that they want, that they're interested in. And like the students actually, because the students are always online and like looking at stuff and they're like, oh my God, what is this? What is this? What is this? And having that kind of like open forum where like students can kind of like bring up like cool stuff that they have seen and try to see if like there's a way to dive into that is also kind of like healthy. to make sure that like the school is still like super good and up to date and everything. And but it's just hard to do it by yourself, and you need sometimes more eyes on like what's up there in order to be able to get at the very cutting edge of like what's going on. So yeah, I mean, I know it. I mean, it's starting to get harder and harder for me. I still enjoy it, but like there's a moment where like, oh my god, there's something new every month, man. Like it is rough. So yeah, that's why also junior artists are freaking amazing. That's one of other perk. Like I love like Rakan, like to give him as an example again. He came in and he's like, oh, by the way, I'm doing this way, and I was like, oh man, this is so much faster than anything I've been doing for the last 10 years. Holy shit. Okay, let's do that. And so, you know, like for me, it's about like humility and just understanding that like, whether it's a junior artist, whether it's a student, whether it's like, sometimes they'll just find stuff that I didn't. And then I'm like, wow, this is amazing. We should absolutely do that. This is great.
Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can finish because also you will be busy today, so
yeah, but that's fine. I mean, I'm super happy. Like I said, I still have like 15-20 minutes if you guys have any other questions, but
I think there is one from Moises. Sorry, Moises, I didn't see it before. He said something like, what do you need to take into account in order to growing as a character artist, and from your perspective or experience point of view, could you unwrap this into different stages?
Yeah. Oh man. The only reason why this is a tough question is because we all learn in different ways. I am a very old school guy when it comes to that, meaning that the stages that made me really go to the next step were just mentors, people that I met in my career that really kind of like opened my eyes to something else. And I have 4 or 5 of them in my career that I met and that like made me realize something or like unblock something for me. So that's how I work. Like I'm kind of like the old apprentice, you know, or very old school. And then once I have like that little spark where I'm like, oh my god, this guy's doing this, then it just unblocks a whole thing for me, and I go and I do my thing. And I used to do that also online. Like there are like just some artists that like really resonated with me, and that I sort of like emulated their styles for the longest time. And you know, even like style like Disney was like kind of like a big launching pad for me initially. And then I met a couple of people, whether it's an art director, whether it's a colleague, and then yeah, you stick with them and you're like, how do you do that? Like this is awesome. And like, so that's how I learn through like usually human connections and experience. But I know other people, like I'm a really big I'm a good friend with like Mark Brunet, who has an online school and stuff like that, and he does everything by himself. Like everything is just grind and like self-taught and all of that stuff. And I'm like, this is hard for me. Like I just need something else there. So I think that the only answer I have for you is that you probably know by now what are like the learning techniques that work for you, whether it's like watching somebody doing it, or and then doing it yourself, or just not having anybody doing it for you, and just like, I need to go and fail 40 times over the same thing and then I'll get it. I think that that's the beauty of it, is that I think realizing what works for you, and that is hard, because it is not necessarily something that like you know is being given to you necessarily right away, but like you need to ask yourself like what works for you and what is the type of like learning process that works, and you can incorporate that into the school system, and you can grab whatever the school is providing you, that and then learn also on by yourself like what works. Like when I was in school, we would get the assignments, and then the way we would do that is that I had like a couple of like friends that I was really close with, and I would literally crash at their place for a week, and we would just grind together. Like we had like kind of like a LAN party type of thing, and we were just like working together, and like we're like, oh man, like I can't get that shape to work, like, and then it was like, okay, let me try, and blah blah blah. And it's like, and nowadays, to this point, like whenever I'm struggling at work, which still happens from time to time, then we'll hop on Discord with like another friend, and we'll both share our screens, and we'll spend like literally like a whole day on Discord with like so he sees my screen on his second monitor, he has my screen, and he sees in real time what I'm doing, and then I see that, and then when I'm like, hey, what would you do there? And then he just do a screenshot, putting into Photoshop or like whatever, and then just does a pin over. And it's like, hey, what about this shape? Have you thought about that? And then I'll do the same for his work. And so that's how I personally learn. Hopefully that answers your question.
I wanted to ask something fast. If you have like, well, you mentioned it in the questions before, kind of it, but you have knowledge that you want to stylize, for example, and you decide to do some different pieces of stylization, let's say, that it's not the same. Because you were talking of focusing on an art style and then being able to translate to the concepts to 3D. Is it better like to do something that is super close to an art style, showing that you can translate different things? I don't know, like what pieces it's better to do in order so they hire you as a junior.
Sorry, I'm trying to digest your question here, so I can answer that. Yes, I mean the long story short, I think that the short answer is, I think it is extremely well seen by employers to see like she grabbed the concept from a project that we worked on, whatever, and she did her own translation, and it looks amazing. Like, and she fully understands the style that we're going for, because she went through the work of understanding that style. So that means that she doesn't have to understand and work through that whenever she comes in, because that's a lot of like time investment. And so I think that there's a lot of like really good lessons to translate like a concept and trying to stick to it, and trying to do that. Like, I think that the best example I can give for that is Disney modelers. I have a few friends that are working at Disney, and if you look at their portfolio, sometimes you cannot tell what's the concept and what's the 3D model. It's like insane. And that Disney, more so than any other company, will ask you, I want to see this in 3D, and literally I want that curve to be, I want to be able to put the drawing on top of it, and it needs to be exactly the same. So that's Disney. Like they're pushing it to like 11. But at the same time, those guys have such a training that they could join any project and do the same, because it's not a matter of the style at that point. It's a matter of like teaching yourself how to match a style. That's what they learned, is that they learned the techniques on like how to translate curves, how to analyze a concept. Something that I personally do a lot is I paint over the concept. I start to isolate the big shapes. I do a black silhouette of it. I try to trick my brain into trying to understand and translate the concept. And so I'm like, okay, what is the silhouette? Because like right now, my brain is too focused on the inner details. Let me just black out everything. Then I'll have a version of that. And then I'll have a version where like I've just like my cubes and my cylinders and my spheres that I'm just like painting on top. And it's really interesting to do that. It's really interesting to just spend an hour before you start any 3D to just going through a few phases of like painting over the concept to try to understand what they did. And what sometimes the concept has wrong, because you're like, oh man, that shoulder doesn't work at all. Like it's just not working at all. And meaning that like, you know already, okay, I'm gonna have to solve that. And you don't realize that halfway through when you're like, oh my God, why is this not working? I've already the whole character done and this shoulder is not doing what I want. And so doing that will really help you. Understanding that if your goal is like really translation, I would do that. Like just go through that extra step. If you want, and hopefully this is okay to give, this is not a school, this is just like an online like documentation of Dylan Ekran, who used to be the lead modeling supervisors at Disney on Zootopia and a bunch of other, has an online class that goes into great detail about just doing that Disney stuff. If you guys are interested, it's I learned a lot from that. So yeah, so that's a really good one. It's just a few hours and it goes through like a lot of like those core principles. So I highly recommend that tutorial. It's more of a tutorial than a class, really. But yeah, there's an art into it. It's
Okay.
not easy. Hopefully
Thank
that was the question and that was the answer for it.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone more? I think we are pretty done. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Renaud, for
Yeah,
all your
absolutely.
info
Thank you guys for having me.
and your knowledge. It was truly amazing to meet you, to talk to you, to someone like you.
The pleasure was mine. I was really honored when you reached out to me. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you so much too.
And looking forward to see you, all of you guys, in like super awesome companies and kicking ass very soon. Like that's usually how it works. So
Probably you will see our faces.
there we go. Looking forward to
Rather
it.
soon than later.
Who knows? One day you might just join. We can work together, and you're gonna teach me some stuff. So looking
Or
forward
you
to
to
it.
us, probably.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.